All right, we are live. Hey everyone, my name is Benita G. I am the Education Concierge. Welcome to season 4. We're here. We're going to talk about it. We're going to be about it. Conversations with the Education Concierge. Today I have 2 amazing guests. Now, you know, when I bring people on, they've already been vetted and they come with the knowledge, understanding that we need to disrupt, dismantle, reset, uproot, set it on fire, get rid of it, plan it again, and do whatever we need to do in the world of education. So I have 2 because that's what we need today, not just 1. 2 mental health therapists. I am going to introduce them, but they're going to literally tell you about themselves and why they started and how we need to break the stigma and how we can do that. I'm going to get started. I'll do the youngest today. We'll get started with the youngest mental health therapist. Youngest doesn't mean like, it just means he's youngest in age. Please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are and tell us how you got started in the mental health profession.
Good afternoon. My name is Rashard Pearson. I am a licensed professional therapist. I currently work at the Children's Hospital with King's Daughters. And the way that I got started was due to my own personal struggles growing up and not having a strong therapist who was willing to break through the barriers that I was presenting with. So I wanted to give other people that opportunity.
Love it. Thank you. And then we're going to talk about that because that's something that we're seeing more and more, and we are appreciating where we have people filling in the gap. So we're appreciating that. We're going to go to the next youngest of the 2. And please introduce yourself and tell us how you became a mental health therapist.
I am Belinda Gordon-Battle. I'm a licensed clinical therapist. I am a graduate of Hampton University, University of Virginia, and Johns Hopkins University. I decided to become a therapist in 7th grade. I grew up in a rural community. We had guidance counselors available to a small percentage of our community. But I never actively saw mental health counselors, mental health therapists, professionals interacting and engaging with the community. And the more research I did, the more I realized that there was a necessity and that was something I actually would have an interest in providing to my community. So since 7th grade, not too many years ago, I decided to become a mental health counselor.
Love it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. So we know who you are. We know why you started. It seems like kind of on the same path. I didn't see it. And so I became it.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And whatever drew me into that, we were talking the other day about the educators' exodus. And in that educators' exodus, we were trying to brainstorm what could we do to stop the exit.
Yeah.
And one of the things that came up immediately was we need wraparound services. And for us in the classroom educators, when we say wraparound, that goes right back. We need mental health therapists, and we need like 1 for every grade, not 1 for the entire school. So that takes me into our next question. Tell me about your company, your profession, and how does that wrap around into education? And whoever wants to go first, let me know.
That's a great question. I really appreciate that question because the name of my company is the BGB Counseling Services. And there is a vast majority of that company is based in the need to provide services to educators and everyone that works within the schoolhouse, to provide services, mental health services to everyone in the school building. That means everybody from your custodial services department to your school bus drivers, to your cafeteria workers, to your front office staff, your substitute teachers, everybody that touches a child, meaning everybody that interacts, engage, and has a responsibility to work with our children in the schoolhouse. The need for mental health services is right there with those adults that are providing services to our children. So I encourage educators and everyone in the schoolhouse to go to your insurance website find the employment assistance program. And over the summer, take advantage of mental health counseling services that you already pay for. This is a service that you already spend money on, and you and your family members can take advantage of. So this is very important that we have this conversation and encourage educators and everyone that's in the schoolhouse to make sure they are taking care of their own mental health needs.
Thank you. And that's important. And I appreciate that you said everyone in the schoolhouse. So we always talk about going from the front of the house, which we call the office, to the back of the house, whereas our custodial staff and our janitorial staff, our cafeteria workers, even including our bus drivers, because they're the first line a lot of times engaging our students. And the last line engaging with our students at the end of the day. So that's important for everyone. Okay, Mr. Pearson.
Yes.
Same question. How does your mental health therapist, how do you as a mental health therapist wrap around into education?
So my company is a little different. I work children's hospital, called the Children's Hospital, the King's Daughters. And one of the reasons why I chose to work there was because I started to see that they were developing a mental health initiative within the community called Lighting the Way, where they were developing not only an acute hospital, but a partial hospitalization, as well as intensive outpatient services. And they just began to partner with Virginia Beach Public Schools, where they'll have a system where the school system can recommend certain students to participate, and the school system is going to cover their expenses. So to me, that was it was no question to work with a company who, one, is developed primarily for the children, but also seeing that there was a need in mental health across the board in different aspects to keep these kids in the community instead of shipping them out to residential facilities or to group homes out away from their family, away from their friends and their peers, but trying to keep them here in the community. But seeing that a big part of where kids spend majority of their time is at school, and a lot of things that are happening to these children today is happening within the school. And it doesn't seem like a lot of things are being done for the children in the school. And so that is one of the reasons why I chose to partner or work with CHKD in that aspect.
So I love that, because I've never heard of a program like that. So is it something, you said it's something new that they have teamed with the local school districts to say, we see the need, how do we keep them in the community? And so the community can see that we're here to assist our youth. We're not going to send them off. We're not going to send them away. And we're going to give access. Because a lot of times we have great initiatives, but it's the access financially that prevents a lot of our students, Black and brown, to being able to get access to the help, because they just can't, they can't afford. Appreciate it. So shout out to CHKD. Thank you for taking on that initiative. So we're going to keep it rolling, because we know that COVID came with a swiftness and a quickness. I just participated in my 20th middle school promotion ceremony, or sometimes they call it a bridging, sometimes they call it graduation. And yes, I'm telling my age. And the students that we promoted, graduated, or bridged to high school started in 6th grade. So we call them our COVID babies. We call them the adapters. They started school in 6th grade, and by that March, they were sent home. Did not come to school at all in 7th grade. They did a whole year of virtual learning. And then they came back for the first time in almost 2.5, 3 years. The first time in the building, back in traditional schooling, was this year. As we're moving forward for 22, 23, I had to think about it. Whoa. What would you give one tip or tool to those of us that are in the building to help with the students that are coming back into our classroom? So Rashard, I'm going to start with you, and I'm going to give us a moment to process that. I'm going to say it again. What would be one tip or tool to give educators that are in the building, or administrators, deans, anyone that's going to interact with the students as they come in for the new school year to help with the mental health on our level, because it is different levels to this on our level.
I think one of the most important things is to be present and be patient and understand that even though the kids are coming to one particular setting, which is the school, they come from different settings. And so what we sometimes fail to realize is that because kids come from different environments and we don't necessarily know what's going on, we try to group them all in together and keep them on the same page, but the same page may not be what's beneficial to each individual kid. And that's where we gotta separate from equality and look at what is equity, or what is going to even out across the board for every student, so every student can be successful, not just presenting where, oh, this kid has a pencil and you have a pencil, but not necessarily understanding this kid might not know how to write, or this kid might not know how to articulate the way that the next kid may look like. And so we focus more so over here versus over where these kids are lacking. Okay, so how do we help them catch up to where everybody else is to even the playing ground?
Yeah.
Thank you.
That's very important. Yeah, I agree with that. That's very important that we try to level the playing ground for the returning students. And one of the ways to do that is to practice patience, but also be proactive. Use this summertime to really prepare for that return. And that will alleviate some of the anxiety. When I say prepare, I mean, use some of this time to even reach out to the parents that are at home with these young people and just remind the parents, when you return in the fall, we're in this together. Use some of the summertime to remind students of things that they can do, not just schoolwork, but things they can do as far as meditation, using the Calm app, taking a walk, how to regulate their own emotions and their own feelings, and practice that in the summer. Practice that with your siblings, practice that with your cousins, have those conversations so that the family is engaging and ready to come back to the schoolhouse in the fall. And in addition to that, I'm really hoping that administrators have some empathy for their educators and everyone in the schoolhouse to make self-care a part of the orientation for returning into the schoolhouse, that they're sending messages to their teams that say, over the summer, even if you work over the summer, that you're going to spend some time taking care of yourself, clearing your mind, and preparing to return to this environment. I think that means a lot to educators when they hear that from their administrators.
So I'm going to take that, but then I'm going to spin it for a moment to Rashard, because you work at a hospital. So we already know that frontline was a lot of different professions that they don't always claim. Frontline was nurses, doctors, mental health therapists, teachers, preachers, grocery store workers, restaurant workers. And at CHKD, how have you seen the environment and the culture there? Because you're in the midst of it. Like, CHKD didn't shut down during COVID. Like, it didn't shut down. People say, oh, the school shut down. We really didn't. The building shut down, but school never shut down. So how are you seeing the self-care advocacy, or how are you giving the self-care advocacy for CHKD employees that you interact with and your clients?
So I can say, since working here, because I recently just got here at CHKD, but I can see the difference between here and previous employers that I have worked with in the hospital setting, where it was kind of like all hands on deck at those hospitals where, hey, we need you, no days off, and we understand what's going on, but it was more so there was sympathy, but not the empathy part that was present, versus nowadays at my current job and position, it's more so like, okay, if you need time, take the time. Like, we understand, like, there's more push for like, okay, taking that self-care, making sure that even if you just take a 15-minute break to take a walk outside the building, to separate and give yourself time to like breathe. And because as therapists, we take on, I think it gets confused that we take on everybody else's problems, but we don't really have a place where we can really get rid of them. Mm-hmm. Like, and that's why it's important for a therapist to have a therapist, but there's still parts of what we do that we can't share with anybody else due to the limits of confidentiality. And so we're taking on a lot of individuals' issues as our own to try to help them, but then a lot of times it gets tricky of being able to us to separate and say, we also need time because we want to be there for everybody else. Mm-hmm. But we can't be there for them if we ourselves aren't together.
That is the most important thing. I think you just said it. What's the old saying? You can't pour out of an empty cup.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
You can't pour out of an empty cup. So I like what both of you are saying. We're on the same page, but now here we are. What can we do to break the stigma? And I love that both of you say, the therapist needs a therapist. But how do we break the stigma, especially in the Black and Brown community? It's Black and Brown populated schools where the majority of my scholars look like me. I look like them. How do we start? Because it has to start. You have to uproot it. How do we start uprooting, breaking the stigma of when my students be like, you need a therapist. And I'm like, yes, everybody does. And then they all look at me like, what? I'm like, everybody needs it. You may not need an IEP. And now we're moving towards ILPs, individualized learning plans. Well, on that, we're going to start saying this child needs a mental health therapist once or twice a week, twice a month. How do we start to break that stigma in our own community? Because it's affecting our youth and we have to get them the mental health therapy now. So as they mature into adults, it becomes just a part of, you work out, you go see a therapist, you go to church, you go to synagogue, you get your hair done.
Yeah, I think the best thing that we can do is just normalize therapy. And one of my hashtags is always #try therapy. It's really simple to try it. One of the things administrators can do is to normalize mental health, mental wellness, make it a part of their teaching process as far as preparing educators in your school and everybody in your schoolhouse, just to normalize it. Have a therapist or a mental health professional of some type come to the school and do small discussions, small groups. Just be available to teachers so they may go into our office and talk for a few moments with someone that's objective and has a listening ear. You see in and out of the schools that people are having struggles. And one way to support people that are struggling is to put the services right there in front of them. Yes. I have never, ever been to a school where people refuse to come speak to me as a mental health counselor. They always want to be in my space. I always welcome them into my space. And if administrators allow that service to be a part of the day in and day out scheduling organization of that school, then it becomes normal. It doesn't become a negative thing when a child says you need to see a therapist. It becomes a caring thing. You should probably go talk to the therapist because you've said or done something that is of concern, and maybe I'll go with you, or maybe I'll just leave a note on the therapist's door or under her door saying so-and-so is having a difficult day. Can you speak to him or her? And it allows the community to become supportive. And that's what we really need, is everybody in the community to be supportive and understanding that mental wellness requires work. And the work has to start somewhere. If it's not at home and it's not out in the community, why not have it start in the schools?
I love it. And I appreciate one of the schools I was a teacher in Florida. They did a QR because they realized they were like, how do we get the kids to schedule, or how do we get them to come in, but not everybody be in their business. And they put around the school, at the water fountain, in the bathrooms, in the classrooms, a QR code.
Yes.
That, the kids always have their phone up. So you don't really know if they're scanning something, if they're taking a selfie, are they watching a TikTok, a Big Buck? Mm-hmm. So you're looking and they can scan and they can schedule a time.
Right.
And then the mental health therapist would email the teacher or text the teacher and say, please send not on the intercom. It's not all loud. Can you please send so-and-so to the office?
Yeah.
And then when they get to the office, they will retrieve them from the office, where people are like, well, you're trying to break the stigma, but we have to do small steps. So if they get called to the office, that's not unusual. We don't know what can happen. You don't know why you couldn't call to the office. And then the mental health therapist would come retrieve them from the office, and then they would have their time. Mm-hmm. And it was back to the students. And we made sure that all teachers understood that if they get pulled out of your class, they give them an opportunity to make it up, but don't stop them from going.
Yeah. And I need administrators to provide that, not just for the students, but I need it for the adults in that school too. It all has to work together. We can't just continue to say it's the students, it's the students, it's the students. We have adults in our school systems that need additional support, and they're teaching our children, are working with our children day in and day out. They're triggering each other. So we have to make sure that we're not just saying it's the students, but also we have adults that need our support as well.
I love it. Thank you. Black men should have mental health therapy because. And when I say that, I want you to think of our youth, not the grown men, our youth. And I know you're trying to narrow it down to one answer. I'm sorry.
I think ultimately Black men / youth should seek mental health or therapy because to narrow it down to one thing that can be very global, because of the way that they're viewed. The pressures that's on them to not only, in a sense, be perfect, because if they make one mistake, it's a chance either one, they get locked up and their life is thrown away, or two, that mistake costs them their life. And so that ultimate pressure to kind of, if I make this mistake, my life is over. So then I end up throwing my life away and not pushing through that mistake and taking it as a learning curve. Okay, yeah, I made a mistake, but I can learn from it and keep moving forward. But a lot of times as a youth, when we make a mistake, it's almost like, from experience, we get scolded. And it's like, but we never are taught why, like, okay, so how do I move forward from this? And it's almost like that constant, like, you aren't doing this right, versus, well, you did this right and you can do this better. It's about reframing the way that we approach the situation rather than kind of dehumanizing or demeaning our youth, especially our Black males or our brown males. Because when you look at them and their mistakes that they have made, it's like the world is over for them.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I reframe how we approach the situation can go across the board in so many aspects. And I appreciate how you said it's a dichotomy, like you're caught it's a double-edged sword. And how do we reframe that? Belinda Gordon Battle, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines that, mental wellness and actually practicing mental wellness allows for you to learn and practice different strategies and different interventions that sometimes are not passed down generation from generation. Sometimes, what our elders provide as discipline does not actually come with an opportunity to reframe and reinforce what we actually want the outcome to be. And so as part of mental health, having that conversation with a therapist retracing your steps with the therapist allows that therapist to help you connect those dots. And so you have a different strategy. You have a new strategy. You have an opportunity to see your situation from a different perspective, and it also empowers you. So it's our responsibility to continue that pattern of empowering our young males and our young females, but empowering our people to know that one misstep does not make you. That is a moment. It's not the movement, it's just a moment. And so having those conversations with an objective person, a professional, someone who's going to keep it confidential, but it's not going to pass judgment. Mm-hmm. You know, that safe space, that's what a therapist creates. And making sure that our young people know how to enter that space, reside in that space, and then come out and function in the world is really important overall for the mental wellness of our entire community.
So we touched on a couple of different things, and we're going to start wrapping it up because we respect time here, but this conversation is so great. It is so needed. I'm going to shift for a moment and go back to the educators in the class, so me. One of the things that I've learned from listening to Belinda Gordon-Battle and listening to other therapists is that something I didn't think about until, and we say it jokingly, but I sat and thought about it during COVID, where my students, I teach middle school, students are honest. Kids are the most honest children or people on the planet I know. Whether they intend to do it. And there's an Instagram post that says, students will pick that one thing about you that you are insecure about. Oh, yeah. And they'll use it as a jump rope.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about it like that. What the young teacher was saying, is she got all dressed up and she thought she was looking cute. And her outfit of the day, she posted it. And she went to school. She put on a little makeup, not a lot, not a full makeup face. She's not going out. And she went to class, and her third graders were like, "Oh my God! Like, why do you look like that?" She said she was crushed, but she had to save face. And she was like, "Oh, I have a meeting, Lion. I have a meeting with downtown later on, and I wanted to get prepared." Give me a tip or a tool for educators, because I'm seeing it more and more. I'm now the senior educator in the building. I have my younger educators coming on, and they are triggered a little bit quicker than us old heads. We just laugh with it, like, "Girl, what? I don't look good." I'll be like, "Can you show me how to do the makeup? Is there a YouTube channel? Is it I know how to switch it and not be offended." But as my younger educators come in the building, what would be a tip or tool to help them in the midst of it as they are being triggered, which may cause it will cause a reaction, and it does affect their mental health for the rest of the day. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mr. Pearson, I'm gonna start with you.
I feel like you've been coming at me all day.
I'm not. Look, you come on, help us, because I know.
Trigger.
But I think one you have to take into account of understanding what is a trigger for you. And a lot of times people don't know what is a trigger for them. But once you are triggered, you have to it's one of those situations where you kind of got to know your audience. Like, a child doesn't do anything malicious, especially, you said she was a third grade teacher. A third grader isn't doing anything to be malicious. They're just speaking honestly, because one thing that we teach young kids is don't lie. So they take that and they run with it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm sitting here like, we do teach them that.
We teach them not to lie, and they run with it, and they say, "Okay, I was just being honest." But it's a way, okay, then we can flip that and take it as a teaching moment. Okay, you said you don't like, how can we change the way that you said that to make it more appropriate where you don't hurt someone's feelings? Because it's just like, use it like a teaching moment where, okay, if Billy was on the playground and he told Sally something about her hair today and Sally got mad, what would you tell Billy? So how would you teach that kid to have that same type of almost filter when it came to an adult?
Mm-hmm.
Don't take it personal. The kids are being kids. That's what they do. Yeah. We can't take what the kids are telling us personal, or else we're going to be fighting for the rest of our lives. And how do we help them?
Right. Yeah.
So Ms. Gordon Battle, I'm going to switch it. I teach middle school and high school. They are being malicious. What do I do? Like they'll come for you now. Yeah. How do I handle that?
Get your look together. You probably do look a mess. No, I'm just joking. Listen.
Start with you. You look at the man in the mirror.
I do look a mess. Go to the bathroom, clean it up. No. What we do is it's the exact same thing Mr. Pearson was saying. Make it a teachable moment. Excuse me. You said Sally and Billy. What were the names you used for sure?
Yeah, Sally and Billy.
Sally and Billy. Excuse me, Sally. Thank you so much for sharing your opinion. This is my look for today. We only have 90 minutes together. I'll look different tomorrow. Thank you for sharing. We're going to continue with our lesson. Don't allow it to be bigger than it is. You know, if you make more of it, then they're going to make more of it. Take a deep breath, accept the compliment, just accept the complaint, just like you accept the compliment with a smile. Thank you very much for your opinion. That's exactly what it is. It's an opinion. And I can move along and continue to have a good day despite other people's opinions of me. I'm strong enough as an individual. Now you may go to the bathroom later and cry about it. Mm-hmm. But for that very moment, it has to be a teachable moment. And you take a deep breath, you take a drink of your water, and you continue to teach your lesson as if the opinion was given, but does not matter to you. You are there to provide a service, which is to teach you. And I'm not teaching you on fashion or beauty. I'm teaching you history or math or reading.
That's a different class.
It's a whole different class.
And maybe we need a class for the teachers. Maybe you take a class and you can come teach us.
You can actually say to her after class, can we talk about maybe some next steps for you? Maybe you need your own podcast. Maybe you need to be someone who's reading Vogue magazine and giving us the fashion tips of the day. Maybe that should be part of your next research project, since you have such an interest in beauty and fashion. But don't let it kill your day. This young person, as beautiful and as wonderful as that young person is, they are not the center of your joy. They should not be. You should have a center somewhere else outside of that young person that will allow you to regroup and reframe the situation and move on.
I like that.
I worked in Southeast Washington, D.C., where young people come into the building at times with words that I cannot say on this podcast. And those words are not for me. I'm hearing it and it's being delivered to me, but those words are not for me. They come from whatever's going on at home, whatever happened between home and school, whatever happened on that public school bus, what happened on that city bus. And it's just delivered to me. And a lot of times later on, those young people, once they understand who you are and understand that those words don't stop me from being great, they come back later and they say, you know what, I said some stuff to you, Miss BGB, and you know how we are. Well, excuse me, no, I do not know how we are. I'd like for you to tell me, how are we? And that allows them to open up a whole new vocabulary. Yes. And so even though they may come in and curse out everybody else, the next day, they'll come in and be like, what's up, BGB? It's a whole different dialogue between us now because we allowed them to reframe the situation. So don't get triggered and allow you to stop being productive in your space. Get triggered, remember, and then recover. Remember what happened and recover from what happened.
Got you. Now, 1, know your triggers. 2, remember and recover. Because that's important. And I like that we started with, you need to know your triggers. You know them. And that's why I said that on the Instagram, she was like, look, I already know what my insecurity is, and they jump on it every time. They don't know, but they may know. Or they just, like you said, they're just being kids. We teach them to be honest. And or in their maliciousness, we have to not be offended, because at times it is not even about me, especially being in middle and high school. It's not even about me.
It's not.
And I have to say to my students sometimes, please don't project your feelings of what you have going on me, but I will send you to someone that you can speak to about it. Let me know when you need a pass.
Absolutely.
And a lot of times they'll look at me later on and go, and they'll just do like this. And in my class, that means I need a pass. Like, we already know what that means. I need a pass. They don't have to say anything. They get up, get the pass. I text the counselor, I'm sending so-and-so to your office. They should be there within the next 4 minutes, because sometimes they stop by the bathroom.
Yeah.
So thank you, both of you.
But you have to have a relationship with your students in order for that to occur in that setting. You have to be in tune to them and aware of them, and they have to trust you in that setting. And if they don't, then this does not happen. You cannot just have nonverbal conversations with your students where they nod at you and you know that they mean, I need to go see a therapist, a counselor right now, if you don't have that bond of trust in that classroom setting.
And that kind of comes from you as the adult being vulnerable to a certain extent with that child or with your children, and have sometimes separate from the normal curriculum of what you have and talk about what's going on in the community, because sometimes we get so caught up on what we're supposed to be doing that we don't know what's really going on and what's important.
Absolutely.
So you have to kind of be able to, like Ms. Gordon said, well, Ms. Battle said, develop those relationships. If you want these kids to be vulnerable, you have to an extent, be vulnerable. Now, don't word bomb it and tell them about your whole life story, about what you got going on in your personal and your romantic relationships and all of this, but be vulnerable to an extent and show them that you understand where they're coming from. And going back to what Ms. Battle said earlier, having empathy and being empathetic and putting yourself in their shoes and showing them, okay, I understand to a certain extent, and I might not completely understand what they're going through, but I get it. So how do we help you? Because the way I might get through something is going to be totally different from how you all may get through. So what helps you?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why you want to make sure your educators understand that mental wellness is important, because when that happens in that classroom setting, that's when you need to call your therapist, set up an appointment and say, this is what happened.
Yes.
You know, this is what I'm feeling. I don't want to take this back into my workspace. I do want to work through this and actually have those true and real authentic conversations with a professional.
And so that leads me into the last question before we do our ending. Should we, and when I say we, because I'm working on some stuff now to help universities and different organizations prepare educators, should we include as a mandatory 1-2 classes mental health therapy? We already take a psychology of the young child, of the psychology of the mind of students, and we learn about frontal lobe development is not there. But do you think we need to now, moving forward, require as part of our study for the education department? I always say 2, because I think one class is never enough for anything. That's why you have 200s and 100s and 202s and 102s. Do you think we should include at least 2 mental health classes for the education department, and why?
You know what? I've thought about this, and it may not be the expected opinion, but I honestly do not think educators can take on one additional thing. They are already, if they are effective, and I'm talking, and I always do this. I want to make sure that we're talking about educators and not just teachers. I appreciate a teacher. A teacher just comes in and they do their work and they deliver the lesson plan, and then they leave the schoolhouse. But those educators that actually build relationships with their students and with their colleagues, they build upon the curriculum. Just like Mr. Pearson was saying, they find that space to add to the curriculum. They are of a different breed, and we want them. We need them. They don't get paid enough. And I don't feel like we need to add anything else to that plate where they're already serving and providing a good service. What I do think educators need is they need to know what some of the warning signs are so that they can then refer students, even colleagues, out to someone else for additional support. We need mental health counselors, licensed professional mental health counselors to be in schools, in and out of classrooms, working hand in hand with our educators. That is, to me, more significant and will produce better results than saying to an educator, take some more classes. When you're, if you're an educator, you really want to focus on learning and development in the learning environment. But all of these other factors do come into play. But what can we do as professional licensed clinicians is to make sure that we can support the educator and the child and the parents in that school setting. And schools need to open up and make themselves available, not just guidance counselors, because guidance counselors have another job altogether. I'm talking about licensed mental health counselors to be in and out of schools and working hand in hand with teachers. If the IEP says that this child should receive therapy, why not have the therapy right there in the school? Have the therapist come into the school and fulfill the IEP requirement. So I do not think educators need additional classes. I'm sorry.
All right, so we're going to say no.
Nope.
All right, Mr. Pearson.
And I 100% agree, because I think a lot of times we get caught up on trying to save money across the board, where we try to encompass everything into one individual or one department so that we save money or resources here, but then we're overworking the individuals who their health is taking an effect, and now it's affecting the kids. Now, like Ms. Battle said, there are some great educators who take on. I am a product of one of those great educators who took the extra step to invest in her students. Mm-hmm. But after a while, you could see how that told, because I would go back to school and talk to her classes and, share experiences and have conversations with her. But after a while of seeing how she was with us to the new generation of kids, and just like you alluded to about how you send a kid out because of their behavior and the office sends them back with no type of consequence. Mm-hmm. She was the same way. It was like, we couldn't even chew gum in this lady's class. Like, we couldn't eat candy, like nothing. To the point nowadays, I walked in her class and they was like, and I was like, what's going on here? She was like, I'm retired at the end of the school year. I'm tired. I send them to the office. They send them right back. Nothing's done. So why am I putting up that fight anymore? And I think it goes back to, we need to get back to that. It takes a village, because, and it starts in multiple aspects of everybody's lives. It starts at home, it starts in the community. But if we allow these things to happen, we can't expect our teachers or our educators to correct all the things of when they go back home. It's 8 hours that they spend, maybe 8 hours at school. Exactly. It's 16 other hours that they spend either at home or in the community. Mm-hmm. And if there's nothing that's going on to correct that behavior, we can't expect our teachers to teach, provide therapy, be mommy and daddy, and everything. Like, we have to get back to this aspect of, all right, how do we as a whole help our youth be successful? Because without certain people that was involved in my life, I probably wouldn't be at the place that I was. Mm-hmm. People took the extra step to help me get to where I am.
Absolutely.
You're my first two guests that I even put out there, like, should we include, and you both totally threw me off, because I was expecting you both to say yeah. Mm-hmm. And you both said no, 100% no. But the reasoning behind it makes complete and utter sense. Like, me being an educator, I'm like, yeah, when would I do more, but I do appreciate the fact that one, it takes the village, and two, teach the signs and the signals and the warnings to the educators so that we can then get help, ask for help, ask for observation. There have been times that I've asked the mental health therapist, anybody come observe me in this particular classroom because something is not flowing in this room. Or when you come in, please pay attention to these two students because I don't know what's happening. They're not. They used to be this way and now they're this way, or I don't feel like they're picking up what I'm putting down. And I've never had anyone say no to me. They've always been like, "What time is that class?" When they come in, can you kind of give me a description of what that student is wearing? And they would always like walk around the room, or they would come in and sit in the back and observe. And then even, and I think a lot of times teachers get scared because you think they're critiquing how you're teaching, but they may, because it may be that your style is not the style that student needs, and you do have to adjust. But I thank both of you for that. Now we're getting to the end. I'm looking at the clock. I'm like, oh, God, over time. This is so good. It's so needed. I think we've always needed mental health therapists in the building, period. And I think as COVID has exposed more of the places where we did not have people listening to what we were asking for, I'm hoping that they are listening now and that we have more mental health therapists available in our schools, not one for every 500.
Yes.
Not one for every 250. Like you need at least 2 to 3 for the wraparound care to really build relationships, because you also build relationships with your students. We're going to do the part I started for season 4. It's called Controversial Corner. Here at the Education Concierge, we talk about real things that are current in education. And because I have 2 amazing mental health therapists, the controversy right now is don't say gay bill, and how we are not to allow a safe space we're not allowed to continue the safe space in our classrooms and our schools for all of our scholars. And for us as an educator, all means all. So all. How do we as educators maneuver around that so that the mental health of my students is still intact? And I say that
the bill you're talking about, that's based in Florida. Am I right?
Yes. But we are concerned that it will now, it's on the table in other states.
Yeah. So let me say this. Anytime one person or one group of people make a decision to minimize or eradicate another group of people, that is our opportunity to be supportive, to be human, and to empower each other. We have a responsibility to vote, and to vote in a way that everybody in this country feels like they are accepted and that they belong. The reason we're having so many problems right now is because people want to discredit other people because they look different, they sleep with other people that we really have nothing to do with. You want to decide what people can do with their bodies, when, where, and how. And that is not our responsibility. And so when we see one group of people doing that to another group, everybody should be willing to vote and make sure that this does not continue. And when you don't have that going on, make sure that you create those safe spaces for children to be who they need to be. you don't have to even respond. As long as the child knows that that space is authentic and safe and secure for them to be who they want to be, then they will come into that space and learn.
Mm-hmm.
Very confrontational type of therapist. That is my therapeutic. That is one of my therapeutic styles. And when it comes to situations like this, at some point, you have to look at the risk versus the reward. Is it going to be more beneficial for me as an educator to pretty much attack this child for being who they want to be? And look at it as an aspect of, okay, as long as I'm doing my job and I'm teaching, if this could be the only place this kid feels safe enough to be themselves, why am I going to take that away from them? Mm. And sometimes, but I also see the other side of as an educator, I still need to pay my bills and I still have a life that I have to take care of as well, whether it's my family, whether it's myself, whatever. So we have to kind of weigh out and kind of find a back door, because I can't necessarily as an educator tell this child what not to wear at school. If his parents allow him to come out the house like this or her house like this, I can't tell them not, because now I have a fight with the parents. So kind of throw it back onto the administrator and say, hey, if you want this child to change, you call the parent and bring that parent in and that child and explain it to them. They're not a distraction in my classroom. And kind of, people like numbers. These are their grades. They are not a distraction. If they're an A student or a B student, this is their grades. Look at the grades of my other students. Nobody's paying attention to this child's outfit or what they're wearing or how they look besides you all. So what's really important here? Is it their education, or is it the way we want them to look for society standards? Because let's be for real, when we were growing up, or myself was growing up, and you all, there were different societal norms, but those norms are constantly changing. So how can we not change with the times?
Yeah.
There it is. And I also want to say that my colleagues, you're putting my colleagues who are openly gay, are part of the LGBTQIA community. Now do they run and hide? Are they to be ashamed of the work that they've done and who they've become and who they're proud to be? Because a lot of them had struggles even within their own identity, and now they're in a place as an adulthood that they're okay with it. And we were sitting there like, so do I have to change the color of my classroom? Because pre-K loves a lot of rainbows and they love a lot of bright colors, and how far are we going to go with this? But thank both of you for giving us insight on how to navigate through this, because it's going to take a moment. It's going to take a pushback. It's going to take parents, like you said, being engaged. It's going to take administrators. It's going to take everybody trying to navigate through this, and hopefully reversal of some of the foolishness that's happened in education. All right, this is where we get to the good part. This is the part I love. We're going to wrap it up, but I give you space and opportunity to shout out if you attended an HBCU and or you are a member of the Divine Nine. I'm going to shout out first. I always do it. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, founded on the campus of Howard University in 1908. And I'm a proud graduate of Hampton Institute University from Hampton, VA, QT3. Let's go. So whoever wants to go next.
Miss Battle,
Thank you. I appreciate that, Mr. Pearson. I am Belinda Gordon Battle, a member of the first and the finest Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, made at Hampton University, Gamma Theta, and currently the second vice president of Pi Delta Omega chapter in Miami, Florida. I provide that as my community service to all mankind. That's what we do.
And good afternoon again, and evening. My name is Rashard Pearson. I am a proud member of Kappa Alpha Psi Fraternity Incorporated, founded on the campus of Indiana University, January 5th, 1911. I am also a proud Spartan of the Norfolk State University, the institution of choice.
But I love it because at the end of the day, it's all HBCU love and it's all Divine Nine love. And all three of us are products of the legacy of parents and guardians family members attended HBCUs. Your brother, our parents.
Virginia State, St. Paul's for life.
Go, baby. So NSU, HU, SPC, BSU. We love it all. CIAA babies. That's what we are.
Yes.
So before we leave and I move on, tell us how we can find you on social media. How can we find you?
That's a great point. You can find me on Facebook under my name, Belinda Gordon Battle, or BGB Counseling Services. You can find me on Instagram at BGB_just be a therapist. And you can always send me an email at bgordonbattle@lifeconsultant@gmail.com. And I have a website, bgbcounselingservices.com. That's it.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson, how can we find you on social media?
I'm on Facebook as Rashard Pearson, and Instagram I am on as Rap to the Therapist, and that is r.a.p_2_the_therapist.
Love it. And as always, everyone, all this information will be in the show notes and on on our podcast page. You can click on it and I'll hyperlink it. This is how we end the program. Two last things. We're gonna wrap it up. I know this is a little longer, y'all, so it might end up being 2 episodes. We're gonna see. But I'm a concierge. And so concierge, back in the day, you would check into the swanky hotel and you would go to the concierge, and our job is to get you access to what you need. So you would say, hey, I want to go to this Michelin star restaurant. I would like to travel here on this vacation. I would like to go to this Broadway show. And we find the tickets. We are the plug. So Rashard and Belinda, both of you, give me one location, destination, restaurant, or Broadway show pre-COVID. No, money is no object, that you would like to go visit and attend, and tell me why. And while they're thinking, don't forget, this is season 4 of the Education Concierge Podcast. We are on all podcast platforms, so subscribe, support, buy me a coffee, and we are excited that you're joining us as we wrap up the Mental Health Therapist Edition.
Absolutely. I love that. And I want to thank you, Benita, before I give my answer, for always advocating for the disruption of education, making sure that we find a way to support educators, support our young people, our students, and to make sure there's progress in place. So I appreciate you for that. If I had my wish, I would be in Africa, traveling various countries, actually spending time and reconnecting with the motherland. For me, that's very important as a Black American that does not have a full understanding of my history. Just to be able to visit Africa and spend time there and connect and ground myself in that world is something I look forward to doing in the near future.
Thank you. Mr. Pearson.
See, I think mine is different. Like, it's not a place or a Broadway show. For me, if money was no option, I want to open up a youth program, especially that focus especially on the at-risk youth and combining mental health as well as developing life skills. Because the way I look at it, all kids don't necessarily want to go to college. And I think that kind of stigma of forcing kids to go to college when they don't necessarily want to do that, but giving them the opportunity to develop a skill or a trade that they can still use to support themselves and be successful in that way would be more beneficial than me going to a Broadway show or a restaurant. So if money was no object, I would take on that type of endeavor.
I love both of it. And the reason we ask, because it gives us insight to the person, and there's no right or wrong answer. You can make a destination. You can go to a destination. We're going to close this like the good old Baptist church, a little shallow Baptist church on Otterdam Road, Virginia. If you don't know, just Google it. And I am the, just Google it. I can't make you go there, but Google it. I am the guest. You guys are the guest pastors. I am the head pastor. The doors of the church are open. And as everybody knows, the guest pastors, you cannot open the doors of the church, but you can in the service. So in the service for me today, in our episode of season 4 with our mental health therapist, you can end with a quote, a scripture, a prayer, a song, however you need to end it. And then once you end it, we will end our episode for today. Thank both of you so much. I'm beaming with joy. The ancestors are proud. That's what I'm gonna say. That's what I'm gonna say.
Thank you for the opportunity.
So however you want to end it, whoever wants to go first, and then we'll end it and we'll stop the episode.
I'll end with one of my favorite quotes by Eleanor Roosevelt to piggyback on what we've been saying. And is that no one can make you feel inferior without your own consent. And so you have to kind of revisit why these things that people are saying to you is triggering you, or why you can't necessarily take constructive criticism, especially if it's constructive, and just look at it from an aspect of, okay, what is it about this situation that bothers me so, and how do I move past it?
Wow.
That's good stuff. I think I would just reiterate to everyone in the schoolhouse that mental health counselors want to work with you. You are not alone. You deserve support, and we are available to support you. Please don't hesitate to reach out and utilize the services. If you go through Benita directly to one of us, that is great. If you go through your EAP program, that is also great, but just try. #try therapy, #be open to the process, and allow yourself to be as mentally well as you can be. And we look forward to continuing this conversation and this dialogue as often as Benita will invite us to her platform. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And with that, everyone, welcome to the family, Mr. Pearson and Ms. Gordon Battle. I want to keep calling y'all, both of you, doctor. So I don't know if y'all, want to go back to school. Let us know. If you're writing a book, let us know. And anything we can do to support the mental health therapist community, because it does take a village. And we've said that several times today. We definitely need to start with our youth. Thank both of you, and I will see you later.